It seems that there's a lot to get into that happened this week, including some controversy that happened after the Game Awards from game science to developers behind Black Myth Wukong, an update regarding Far Cry 7, Xbox planning to do a game showcase in January, and a lot more. Now, according to one of the game developers on a social media site called Weibo, named Yokar Fang G, had posted this translated using the great power of Google Translate, where he said, quote, "It has been a day since the Game Awards. I'm here to say in a few words from my heart. I think it might be useful to some friends. After all, I didn't have the opportunity to speak on stage yesterday. One, this awards ceremony coincided with the release of a relatively large update. For me personally, this project that took 7 years has officially come to an end. The 4 nominations for Black Myth Wukong: Best Action Game, Best Art Direction, Best Game Direction, and Game of the Year were all the first in China. In the end, it won the Best Action and Player's Voice, especially the player's voice, which is gratifying, but I must admit that there are disappointments and regrets, and more of them are giving up illusions. The games nominated this year are all excellent, but I really don't understand the selection criteria for this year's Game of the Year. I came here for nothing." Now, granted, that was the biggest talking point from all that. If y'all want to go read the full thing, I will have it linked in the description box below. It was also revealed that he had wrote an acceptance speech 2 years before he even won the award, which you got to have some type of confidence to really think that you're going to win the award, which rightfully so, because even 2 years ago, people seen this game and was blown away. Like, it looked breathtaking. It looked something that is next gen, that is redefined gaming almost. And that might be me putting a little bit too much salt on the fries, but you get the point. It was a really anticipated game, and I'm pretty sure that everybody who worked on the game seen it, and even this developer as well, probably was like, well shit, if everybody's looking forward to this game, and then when the game comes out, it gets glowing reviews, it sells incredibly well for a game coming out of China, then why wouldn't we win Game of the Year almost? Which I can understand that, because that was the game I was actually rooting for to win Game of the Year instead of Astrobot. But I don't mind Astrobot winning, because it does send a message to the industry that, hey, you don't have to be this quadruple A or triple A game to win something. You could be something like a platformer to win Game of the Year, and people will gravitate towards it and love it. Now, also, there was some comments made about this regarding 2 high-profile former IGN employees.
And I was in the front row this year. It was my first time being in the front row. I was like, wow, thanks, Jeff. Great seats. But being in the front row means that you can see all of the actually important people. So, like, next to me was the whole Sony team. Frankly, that's probably why they put me there, was because when they gave me the seat, I was with Sony. So I was with the Sony publishing team. Behind me was Joseph Faris. Just behind him was Sam Lake, both of whom I know and am very fond of. They're both really great dudes. But I could see all of the nominees and awards winners, and the Black Myth Wukong team, I don't know which person on the team, was crying when Astrobot got Game of the Year, because you could see him just looking down the line, which is the first time I've ever seen anything like that, because generally everyone is like, Game Awards doesn't matter that much. But yeah, the Wukong team were crying when they did not win, which was definitely unusual. Clearly meant a lot to them. They did an amazing thing. But I did find that surprising. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Did it look like celebratory crying? No, 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 no. They were upset. Definitely upset that they didn't win. Which is also fair. But it was still just surprising. It's really.
Now, Lana Pierce's comments did get community noted by Charles Young, a former editor-in-chief of IGN China, who refuted her claim and was actually present with Game Science throughout their time at the Game Awards, where Charles Young did say, "It's obvious that she mistook someone else, since I was with the science team the entire time during those days, including the Game Awards night. No one cried over this. In fact, I didn't even see anyone crying at the event. I have no idea why she said so." Which it is rather peculiar and interesting. At this point, it kind of comes off like a case of he said, she said, but I can understand, like, hypothetically speaking, why any developer would be disappointed, at least, that they didn't win Game of the Year, especially if they sell a gajillion copies and has great word of mouth. You would think that it's a shoe-in to win the award. It would be like if GTA 6 gets nominated for Game of the Year, which it most likely will, and most likely would sweep the awards, so get ready for that next year, unless it somehow slips into 2026, but that's a story for another day. But imagine if Rockstar releases a game like GTA 6, sells a gajillion copies, and it doesn't win Game of the Year. Like, a lot of people would be shocked, even the developers themselves, that they wouldn't win the award. It would be a shoo-in. Nevertheless, I could understand the disappointment if it was present, but it doesn't seem like it was there. Next up, an exclusive report from Tom Henderson saying Ubisoft wants to change the Far Cry formula with Far Cry 7 and Maverick. It's noted that the Far Cry series will be busy in the future with 2 games in the works. At one point, both had the same codename, Talisker, and now the next mainline title is codenamed Blackbird, while this multiplayer extraction-based shooter is codenamed Maverick. But internally, their release dates have been pushed back from next year to 2026. Now, these games will be moving away from the Dungeon engine to Snowdrop. Both want to move away from the Far Cry formula, with codename Maverick taking place somewhere in the Alaskan wilderness, and codename Blackbird will have you go on this rescue quest to save your family who've been kidnapped by some type of weird cult a la Far Cry 5, and they've been performing some type of hallucinogenic experiments on animals and kids. And this rumored timer, which I have spoke about before, it's said to have 24 real life hours, but it's compared to 72 hours in game, and there will be some type of in-game watch to kind of keep track of the time. And this isn't the only thing that's changing. They want to change movement as well, adding tactical sprinting, sliding, vaulting, and different types of movement. And some aspects for Maverick will bleed into Blackbird, including some type of inventory system and looting. Now, according to sources to Insider Gaming, they're being quoted as saying, "I'd argue it makes a lot of sense given your desperation to rescue your family, as in regards to how Maverick won't have an effect on Blackbird." And it seems that Ubisoft as a whole, they're more optimistic about this mainline Far Cry game. I mean, why wouldn't you be? And they're a little bit concerned with this upcoming multiplayer extraction based shooter. And this is coming off the heels of the cancellation of X Defiant, mind you. Now, people could speculate one of these 2 projects could get axed. I think if we're being honest, if any one of these projects gets axed, it will probably be this multiplayer extraction based shooter, because they tried that before. They really didn't have that much success for that Rainbow Six spinoff that they came out with that went absolutely nowhere, went dead in the water. So if anything gets canned or scrapped, it's more than likely going to be Maverick over a mainline Far Cry game, considering how well that franchise sell every entry. And if anything, if I had to speculate, I would imagine that if Maverick gets scrapped, what they'll end up doing, they'll probably add Maverick as some type of multiplayer component to Far Cry 7 to kind of give the game a little bit more meat on the bones, in a sense, where it's like, okay, once you get through with the main game, you could play the multiplayer that's this like extraction based shooter. Or if they want to do something different, they could just have it as like free DLC down the road, considering Ubisoft does have a good track record of supporting games after launch, no matter if it is hardly anybody playing it. Now, my biggest concern with Far Cry 7, the narrative and premise sounds amazing. It sounds like that they're trying to take a little bit of inspiration from The Most Dangerous Game. If y'all remember, I think they came out with some type of old-timey movie back in the day, and based on the book itself, which is a great book. I'm not that much of a book reader, but if I was to read a book, it would be that one. So it kind of makes me wonder, how much are they going to lean into that possibly? And the other thing that kind of worries me is, will they have any type of RPG mechanics like they did in 6? Because I think that was the biggest drawback for Far Cry 6, especially coming off the heels of 5, where they refined the formula a little bit. You have this cause and effect mechanic in the game where the more shit you fuck up for the cult in 5, they would at least kidnap you and say, hey, stop doing that, and just so you can go out and do it again, obviously. But you get the point. It felt like the world was reacting to the things you were doing, whereas in 6 it's not really that present. And even though, you know, a critique or a pushback could be, oh well, it kind of broke immersion in a sense, but I didn't mind it for what it was with the game. It's just with 6 adding the arbitrary RPG mechanics that we've seen Ubisoft do time and time again with games like Ghost Recon, Breakpoint, and Wildlands for no reason. It just, it just didn't hit. And I feel like with that game, it made it more like the Division, and that game had its own problems of being or not knowing if it wanted to be first person or third person, considering that you could be in third person in your hub world or be in third person when you're using a backpack as a weapon, but you can't play the game in third person. And I kind of would be curious if they're gonna end up switching the perspective and not dip their toe in it and just not want to commit to it fully. I just don't want to see any RPG mechanics in this game whatsoever. I want to be able to get clean kills like you can in previous Far Cry games, just like 3, 4, and 5, where enemies aren't bullet spongy and they don't feel like, oh, I need to have soft rounds or armor piercing rounds just to kill this one guy with the helmet. Like, I don't mind the different ammo types being in a game. I just don't think it should be tied to some type of arbitrary RPG mechanic. Same when it comes to the gear system as well. Like, at least with 5, you can get different gear that was more stat based and not number based, where it's like, okay, this does a little bit more than that and this, that, and the third. And it don't have like a massive map that would make people feel like this is Assassin's Creed Odyssey all over again, or make people feel like it's impossible to kill somebody with a shotgun. And it is crazy to think that when you look at the Avatar game, even for all the faults that game had, you could still at least kill somebody in a couple hits with the weapons. Even though the Avatar game did have RPG mechanics itself, it didn't feel overbearing, it didn't overstay its welcome. And at least when you did kill the enemies in the game, they didn't feel bullet spongy. They didn't feel impossible to kill. Using machine guns and shotguns, even though those were the only 2 options when it comes to guns, like, that's it. Granted, that game had a whole bunch of problems besides that. Now, sometime last week, there was a tweet that went viral where it says, what the video game industry thinks we want versus what we actually want. And this was by somebody saying, it's clear that a lot of you are new here. Let me walk you through something. Women have been fighting decades to get games to stop portraying them like Stellar Blade. The same studio on the left had to fight just to get Ellie shown on the cover of Last of Us in 2013. And honestly, I do have a problem with both tweets in question, but to quickly respond to the last one, I think that it just comes to show that you can make a game featuring a female protagonist that could be sexy, attractive. Now, it's not like that they turned her into a blow-up sex doll in the game. Of course, you can't sell that to market, you freak. Now, granted, did Stellar Blade light the world on fire in terms of sales? No, but for a brand new IP coming from a small studio, it did pretty well for what it is, and hopefully it's enough to greenlight a sequel. I would have liked it to at least sell like 5-6 million copies. I feel like that's what it deserves at least. And Stellar Blade is one of those games, it does kind of disprove the notion that, oh, people hate women in games, because if they did, they would not have bought Stellar Blade. Hell, why do you think that people love Tifa's design in Final Fantasy VII Remake? People literally simp over her. They got freaking life-size pillows of her, for fuck's sake. That's just a Tifa effect. And I do think you can live in a world where 2 things can be true, where you could have a video game character that is sexy, that looks good, and also have a game as it stands be captivating and interesting, as well as not every game needs to have a sexy character. It's not the end all be all, because there's a lot of video games that have come out that have not had a overly sexual character that did really well. You look at Returnal, you look at the Horizon franchise, Last of Us Part 2, Uncharted Lost Legacy, but you get the idea. Like, those female characters, they look good in their own right. They're not overly sexual, but they are still deemed attractive. And there's a whole bunch of other female characters that I can go over and get into. And at the center of this whole dialogue, it does involve Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet, which I don't mind how the character design looks. I am more infatuated with the with the tone of the game, the synth 80s vibe it gives off. I think that has me really hooked and interested to see what this game is going to be. And I wouldn't be surprised, even though that it's just an in-game cinematic, I would not be shocked if the attention to detail you see in that cinematic is somewhat present or almost present in the main game, because we see how good the faces look in Last of Us Part 2. The attention to detail for that game is outstanding. And also there was some alleged story leaks that came out which was proven false by Jason Schreier. He completely debunked all that, which I'm not going to go through it because I'm pretty sure people done read through it by now. All of it sounds like a bunch of hogwash, and the game's not going to come out for what, like 3 or 4 years at this point. I'd be shocked if it comes out by 2026. But nevertheless, I don't believe one person has a hold to a file of Naughty Dog's story script for this game already. If they do, then at this point y'all got a busted pipe you just don't want to fix. Because what's up with all these leaks? It doesn't really give anything substantial, and it's not really been corroborated by anybody. Like I said, it got debunked and thrown out the window, but I digress. Some people have already tried to run with the notion that it's true, and people trying to play damage control or whatever. But with that being said, y'all let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Till next time, I'll see you on the next video. Peace.